Hi Cox community, Mrs. Lopez here to bring you the next 3 chapters of Judy Blume's, otherwise known as Sheila the Great. We are starting on chapter 7 today. We go to day camp every weekday from 9 until 3. Then we go to the pool from 3:30 to 5:30. We are always so busy going somewhere that I can't believe we've been in Tarrytown for 2 whole weeks. One night, before Daddy got home, I arranged my shoes in the front hall with the toes pointing towards the den. Then I hid behind the drapes and waited. But between the den and the front hall was the living room and dining room. I heard Daddy come into the house and call, "Hello, I'm home." I hoped when he saw my shoes he would come and find me right away, because there weren't any lights on in the den and the sky was getting darker every second. It was beginning to thunder. I don't like thunderstorms. Daddy has told me a million times that the lightning isn't going to get me, and I want to believe him. But I can't. I never should have hidden so far away. I should have gone into the closet in the front hall. Then I'd have been near the kitchen where Libby and Mom were. I wondered what was taking Daddy so long. And what were those funny noises? I wish somebody would turn on the lights. I wasn't having fun at all. Maybe Daddy had forgotten about me. Maybe he wasn't even looking. I decided then and there that I'd have to tell him I don't want to play this game anymore. Not in this house. I hoped he wouldn't think it was because I'm chicken. That's what Libby would say. She'd make her cackling noise and laugh at me. When I couldn't stand it behind the drapes for another second, I crawled out and made my way back into the living room on all fours. Finally, Mom shouted, "Sheila, come out right now or dinner will be ruined." I was really happy when she said that. I ran into the kitchen and told Daddy, if it is going to take him that long to find me every night, we'll never get to eat. So he agreed that we will stop our game for the summer. Now Libby will never know the truth, so she won't have to call me chicken. Every night after dinner, Daddy unchains Jennifer and lets her run around loose. He says she needs the exercise. She tears around the yard yelping. I watch from my bedroom window. Daddy and Libby and Jennifer have a lot of fun playing games. Libby throws a ball and Jennifer catches it in her mouth, and Daddy has taught her to roll over and play dead. Both Mom and Daddy said I am silly to hide upstairs and miss all the fun. Well, maybe I am, but I just can't help it. I wonder why I had to be born like me, instead of like Libby, who isn't afraid of anything. Sometimes it just doesn't seem fair. At least I'm getting used to sleeping in a room by myself. I'm not so scared at night now. I just make sure that my ear is always covered with the blanket. I don't know why, but I can't stand having my ear sticking out when I sleep. Anyway, this house is not nearly as spooky as Mouse's. Hers is much bigger and much older. They don't even use all the rooms upstairs. I asked Mouse if it scares her to live in a place like that, and she said she never thought about it. She's always lived in the same house, and before that, her mother's family lived in it. And someday she might get married and live there too. She said a long time ago Washington Irving slept in her house. "Who's he?" I asked. "Is he related to George?" I laughed at my own joke. "You mean you don't know about Washington Irving?" "No, I never even heard of him," I told her. "You mean you're going into 5th grade and you still never heard about Washington Irving?" "I told you, no. Who is he anyway?" "Well, I just can't believe it," Mouse said. "What's wrong with those schools in New York City?" "If you know so much about him, why don't you just tell me who he is at least?" "Oh, I will. I just can't believe that you don't already know, that's all," Mouse said. "Go on," I told her. "I'm listening." "Well, he's a very famous writer." "What did he write?" I asked. "Oh, he wrote Rip Van Winkle and the Legend of Sleepy Hollow." "I heard of Rip Van Winkle," I said. "He slept for a long time, but I never heard about Sleepy Hollow." "You never heard about Sleepy Hollow and Ichabod Crane?" "That's right," I said. "You people in Tarrytown have a lot of useless information. If this Ichabod Crane was so important, I'd have heard about him in New York." "Well, all I can tell you is that the Headless Horseman rode right through here," Mouse said, spreading her arms. "Right through Tarrytown. So naturally it's important to us. How many towns do you think have a headless horseman riding through them? What do you mean, headless? I asked. Oh, he was the man on the horse and he had no head, and Ichabod Crane saw him and got very scared. But it's just a story, right? I mean, there's no such thing as a headless horseman. Well, Mouse said, it's kind of a story, but I believe it. In fact, I've heard him around here lately. Haven't you? Heard what? The headless horseman. If you listen at night, you can hear his eerie noise. And that's him, haunting Tarrytown. I don't believe you, I said. I don't care if you do or you don't. People who live in Tarrytown all year long know it's the truth. What does he do? I asked. Does he kill people? Oh no, nothing like that. He just rides around haunting, like a ghost. There's no such thing as ghosts, I said. Maybe there is, and maybe there isn't. I had a lot of trouble sleeping after Mouse told me that. I asked my father did he know about Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman, and he said, sure, it's a very famous story. Do you believe it? I asked. It's just a story, Sheila. But there might be a Headless Horseman. No, Washington Irving invented him. But he lived around here, didn't he? Yes, but so what? Well, I said, suppose he really saw this Headless Horseman and thought nobody would believe him, so he wrote a story about him. You see? No, I don't see, Daddy said. It's all made up. I'll bring you a book of his stories and you can read them. Then you'll understand. No, I shouted. I don't want to read about any Headless Horseman. After that, whenever I heard noises at night, I knew it was the Headless Horseman haunting Tarrytown. I wished it was September and we could go back to the city where there isn't room for any kind of horseman to go haunting at night. Chapter 8. One gray, cloudy Saturday afternoon, Mrs. Ellis said she had to do some shopping. Mouse didn't want to go, so her mother said she could stay at our house. Mouse gave me yo-yo lessons for a half hour, and all that time I wished there was something I could do better than Mouse and the other kids in Tarrytown. If only they had to live in the city for a month, I thought. Then I'd show them plenty. Probably not one of them could take a cross-town bus without getting lost. When we got tired of yo-yoing, Mouse said, let's call the twins and see if they can come over. The twins are Sandra and Jane Van Arden. They swim at the pool too. They don't look anything alike. Sandra is very shy and quiet, and she always looks at your feet when you talk to her. They are both pretty good swimmers, but I've never seen Sandra dunk anyone. That's why I like her better than Jane. When Mouse called them, they said they would be right over because if they stayed home, their mother was going to make them clean out their closets. When they got to my house, we had a snack of Oreos and milk. Sandra and Jane opened their cookies and eat all the icing first. I used to do that, but Libby said I was disgusting. When we were finished with our snack, Mouse said, "Want to play indoor hide and seek?" "Hey, yeah," Jane said, "at your house, Mouse." "But we can't," I said. "Her mother isn't home." Mouse and Jane laughed, then Sandra said, "There's a special way to get into the Mouse house when her mother isn't home." "And just wait till you see it," Jane said. So we walked down the road to Mouse's, and when we got there, the girls showed me the milk door. It's a small door on the side of the house near the kitchen. Mouse unlatched it and said, "See, this is where the milkman puts our stuff. My mother never has to go outside to get it. Isn't that neat?" "Yeah," I said. "It's really neat. It's kind of like a built-in milk box." "Right," Jane said. "Only it's not a box because it leads right into the house." Mouse boosted Jane up and Jane crawled through the milk door. Then Sandra boosted Mouse and she crawled through. I gave Sandra a boost and was wondering who was going to give me a boost when Sandra cried, "Help! I'm stuck!" "You can't be," Mouse said. "I am," Sandra yelled. "I really am." "You need to go on a diet," Jane called from inside. "Please do something," Sandra begged. Since I was the only one left on the outside, I pulled Sandra's legs, trying to get her back out. When that didn't work, Jane and Mouse pulled from the inside, hoping to get her through the milk door. But nothing happened. Sandra cried, "I'm doomed. I'll be here forever." Jane said we should call the fire department and let them chop her out. But Mouse said her mother might get mad about that. I could see that unless I took charge of the situation, nothing would get done. So I said, Mouse, you and Jane open the regular door and help me on the outside. I never thought of that, Mouse said. Well, you should have, I told her, because if you had been the only one to crawl through the milk door in the first place, none of this would have happened. You could have unlocked the back door and we would have walked in like any other human being. Mouse didn't answer me, but she and Jane did what I told them to do and joined me on the outside. Okay, I said, now pull Sandra by the legs. All three of us pulled as hard as we could, but she still wouldn't budge. We need rope. Do you have any? I asked Mouse. I think so, she said, in the garage. Well, don't just stand there, go get it. Mouse ran to the garage and came back with the rope. I tied it onto Sandra's ankles and we all pulled and pulled until we got her out. By that time, she was crying for real and her ankles were full of rope burns. We've got to carry her inside now, I said. I'll take her arms, Mouse, you take her legs, and Jane, you grab her middle. As we were carrying her into the house, Sandra kept screaming, "Put me down! Put me down!" Some people don't know when other people are trying to help them. We got her into the kitchen and put her down on the floor. Mouse said, "Her legs are a mess. The bandages are upstairs. We better get her up there too." "That's crazy," I said. "You go get the bandages and some first aid cream and we'll fix her up down here." So Mouse ran upstairs and came back with a million little tubes and bottles and bandages, and we all played doctor, fixing Sandra up. Of course, I was the only one who knew just what medicine to put on each of Sandra's wounds. So I was really the main doctor and the others were my assistants. We must have done a good job because Sandra stopped crying and said her legs felt much better. She even managed to walk up the stairs so we could start our game of hide and seek. Mouse told Sandra she didn't have to be it because she had already suffered enough. The only rules to indoor hide and seek were we had to stay upstairs and the attic was off limits. Home base was the sink in the hall bathroom. We did once, twice, 3 shoot to see who would be it first. I lost. I hate to be it, especially in a strange place. I always get this creepy feeling, and I've never played hide and seek inside before, except with Daddy, and that's not the same at all because nobody's going to pop out from under something and scare me. But I closed my eyes and counted to 75 before I hollered. "Ready or not, here I come." I was supposed to count to 100, but I'm sure nobody noticed. If they did, I would just tell them I'm a very fast counter. The house was quiet, except for some squeaks now and then. I wanted to find the others in a hurry so I wouldn't be all alone. I walked from bedroom to bedroom, but I didn't search under the beds or in the closets. I was afraid of what I might find. Suppose Washington Irving left something behind when he slept there 100 years ago. I wonder if the Headless Horseman ever comes inside houses. If he does, I know he would choose this one because it's so old he would feel at home. I went into Betsy's room. Ooch was on her bed. I made a lot of noise, hoping one of the others would hear me and laugh, but no one did. Just as I was coming out of Betsy's room, Jane made a mad dash for the hall bathroom and yelled, "Home! Free all!" Now at least I had some company. I was glad she came out, even though I didn't catch her. I had to concentrate on finding Mouse or Sandra. If they all got home free, I'd wind up as it again. Jane walked around with me, and we found Sandra sitting in the bathroom in Mr. and Mrs. Ellis's bathroom. Now all we needed was Mouse. We looked and we looked, but we couldn't find her. Finally, Jane said, "Do you suppose she's in the laundry chute again?" "No," Sandra said. "She got in awful trouble the last time, remember?" "What laundry chute?" I asked. "Oh, it's this hole in the wall where Mrs. Ellis drops the dirty clothes. They fall down to the basement when she does the wash." "Come on, let's look," Jane said. We walked down the long hallway to the attic door. Next to it was a smaller door that looked like an oven. Jane pulled it open and looked inside. "No Mouse," she said. "How did she hide in there? Didn't she fall down to the basement?" I asked. "Oh, she can really hang on," Jane said. "But the last time her mother caught her, and she got it good," Sandra told me. "Where do you suppose she is?" I asked. "Who knows," Jane said. Just then we all heard a scary noise. Whoo! Whoo! All 3 of us grabbed hold of each other and Sandra started laughing like crazy. Then Jane started, so I laughed as loud as they did, even louder, to show I thought it was funny too. Whoo! Jane pulled away and flung open the attic door. Mouse shouted, "Boo!" and jumped out at us. "Ha ha, I really scared you." "Scared who?" I asked. "You think a little noise like that would scare us?" "Yeah," Sandra said. "We all knew it was you." "And besides that," I told Mouse, "you broke the rules. The attic is supposed to be off limits. You said so yourself." "Yeah," Sandra and Jane said together. I didn't want to play any more hide and seek after that, but Mouse promised not to scare us again. She said she'd even be it just to show what a good sport she was. So Sandra, Jane, and me hid while Mouse stood at the sink and counted up to 100. No cheating allowed. I ran to Mrs. Ellis's room and hid inside her closet. My heart was thumping so loud, I thought it might explode and that would be the end of me. I crouched in the corner and waited. I never know when to run for home base. Other kids get home free. Why don't I? I am still for a long time. Why didn't Mouse come? Should I try for home base? I heard footsteps. So she was finally going to have a look in her mother's room, I thought. It's about time. The footsteps came closer and closer. I hid behind a long bathrobe. Maybe she wouldn't find me after all. And as soon as she was gone, I would run for home base. The closet door opened. I peeked out from behind the robe. All I saw were feet. They didn't belong to Mouse. They were much too big. Whoever it was started moving the clothes around. The robe I was hiding behind wiggled, and there was a terrible scream. I think it came from me. "Sheila Tubman!" Mrs. Ellis shouted. "You nearly scared me to death." I tried to say something I couldn't make the words come out. I was shaking. Mrs. Ellis reached down and helped me up. "Come out of there," she said. "What are you doing in my closet?" "I don't know," I told her. "You better know. I'm waiting to hear your answer." "Well, you see," I began, and then Mouse, Sandra, and Jane came into the room. "Hi, Mom," Mouse said. "Mouse, what is going on here?" Mrs. Ellis asked. "We were playing a little hide and seek," Mouse said. "You were supposed to be at Sheila's house," her mother said. "Mrs. Tubman is going crazy trying to find you." "No kidding," Mouse said. "That's right," Mrs. Ellis turned to me. "Sheila, go and call your mother right now and tell her where you are." That night, Mr. Ellis boarded up the milk door and Mrs. Ellis put out a regular milk box. And we all knew that was the end of indoor hide and seek at the Mouse House. Chapter 9. After 3 weeks of day camp, my favorite activity is still pottery. Mouse, Russ Bindle, and Sam Sweeney agree. The 4 of us haven't switched activities yet, even though we are supposed to try something new every week. Denise says by the end of summer, we should each have a really good bowl to take home with us. My mother is not happy about pottery as I am. This is because I come home covered with clay every day. It even gets in my hair and ears. The only bad thing about pottery are I have to put up with a lot of shampoos, and Mom is always chasing me with the Q-tips. Russ Bindle's mother runs the camp office. She's pretty nice. Russ looks just like her. He's a year older than me, but so small, he looks about 8. Between Russ and his mother, I have never seen so many freckles. Sam Sweeney reminds me of Peter Hatcher. He thinks he knows everything. And when his clay elephant broke in the kiln, he blamed it on me and Mouse for making too much noise while it was baking. Denise told him it wasn't anybody's fault, and maybe he left too many cracks in his elephant because besides breaking in half, one tusk also fell off. Sam is the only one of us who doesn't use the pottery wheel. He's always making animals, and elephants are his favorite. I can't imagine what he does with all his elephants. Mouse and I call him Babar in private. Of course, we can't stay at pottery all day. That's our main activity from 9:30 until lunchtime. After lunch, we are supposed to have a quiet hour. We usually break up into small groups and sit under the trees. Most of our counselors play the guitar, and we sing a lot. I have learned some very unusual songs at day camp. One is about Anne Boleyn, who was married to King Henry VIII of England. But when she didn't have any boy babies, he decided she should have her head chopped off. And in this song, she is back haunting King Henry's castle, with her head tucked underneath her arm. I like to sing the song, but I don't like to think about her walking around like that. She reminds me of the Headless Horseman. This morning, Denise asked me to go to the camp office to tell Mrs. Bindle that she is expecting an important phone call. When I got there, Mrs. Bindle was trying to use the copy machine. "I can't believe this," she said. "It's jammed again." I watched for a while and she tried to get it working. "Want me to help you?" I asked. "That's very nice of you, Sheila, but you better get back to your activity and tell Dennis I'll come and get her when her phone call comes through." I still didn't go because all of a sudden I had the greatest idea of how to show the Tarrytown kids that I was an expert in something besides bandaging legs. "We had a class newspaper last year," I told Mrs. Bindle. "I used to run off the copies in the office. Nobody had to help me. I did it all by myself." "That must have been very interesting," Mrs. Bindle said. She was trying to pull the jammed paper out of the copier. "It was. I could use your computer and copier if we had a camp newspaper, couldn't I?" "But we don't have a camp newspaper." She had the copier pulled apart now. "We should," I said. "Should what?" she asked. "Have a camp newspaper." "But we don't." "Maybe we will," I called, running out of the office. I ran right into Mr. Hillstrom, the director of our camp. He caught me so I didn't fall down. "What's your hurry?" he asked. "Oh, Mr. Hillstrom, you're just the one I wanted to see," I told him. "Do you know what we need here?" "No, what?" "A newspaper, a camp newspaper, and I've decided it's my duty to start one." Mr. Hillstrom said, "That's a very good idea." "I knew you'd think so. I'll be in charge of everything," I said. "You may need some help, Sheila. Suppose I let you announce your plans this afternoon, then you can form committees and get started." "I don't need committees," I said. "I'm very experienced. I know exactly what to do." "Running a newspaper is a big job," Mr. Hillstrom said, "and nobody does it alone." "I can do it, Mr. Hillstrom. You'll see. I've even got a name picked out." "What is it?" he asked. "It's a surprise. You'll find out next Friday when you read the first issue." "Well," Mr. Hillstrom said, "you seem determined to try it out on your own, so good luck." "Oh, thanks, Mr. Hillstrom. Thanks a lot." I ran back to Pottery and told everyone about our camp newspaper. "When's it coming out?" Mouse asked. "On Friday," I said, "and I'm going to be very busy between now and then. I may have to skip Pottery. You know, it's a big job to put out a paper all by yourself." "That's just what I was thinking," Denise said. "What you need is a committee. Maybe you could get a reporter from each group to tell you what's going on." "I'll help you," Mouse said. "I'd like to be a reporter." "I don't need any reporters," I told everyone. "I can do it all by myself." "But if I'm a reporter, we can work together," Mouse said. "We could be a team." "It's my idea, and I'm doing everything," I told her. "Well, if that's the way you want to be about it," Mouse said. I could tell that Mouse was wishing she had thought up the idea of having a camp newspaper, and Russ and Sam were really surprised that I knew so much about it. "Is my mother going to type it into the computer for you?" Russ asked. "Of course not," I told him. "I know how to use a computer." That night, I wrote my first story. I called it "Babar Strikes Again." It's all about Sam Sweeney and his clay elephants, but of course, I never mentioned him by name. Starting the next morning, I made my rounds of all the activities. I carried my pad around with me and kept a pencil tucked behind my ear. I jotted down all kinds of interesting things and story ideas like Libby the Dancing Skeleton and the real reason Denise goes barefoot. I discovered that at lunch. I was crawling around listening to bits of conversation when I noticed the bottoms of Denise's feet. She was sitting on the grass, leaning against a tree, and the bottoms of her feet pointed up. I don't know how I ever missed seeing them before. They are covered with warts. No wonder she doesn't wear shoes. The next day was very hot, and as I trudged around from activity to activity, I wondered what Mouse, Russ, and Sam were doing at Pottery. I didn't come up with any new story ideas, so I wrote a weather report, arranged a list of do's and don'ts about the camp bus, and made up a crossword puzzle of counselors' names. I offered a prize to the first person to hand it in with all the right names. On Thursday, I went to the office to type the first edition of my camp newspaper. I figured it'd only take a few minutes, and then I could go back to Pottery. I was starting to miss Mouse and my regular camp routine. Mouse and Russ were probably having a lot of fun with the pottery wheel, and with me out of the way, they'd each have extra turns. But Mrs. Bindle said she was having a very busy day and couldn't possibly give up her computer. "I have to use it," I told her. "I have a newspaper to get out." "Well, I'm sorry, Sheila." She went back to her work. After a minute, she looked up at me and sighed. Tell you what, she said, we have an old typewriter in the closet. I could let you use that. Thanks, Mrs. Bindle. But after typing for the longest time, I was still working on Babar Strikes Again, and the wastebasket was full of my mistakes. That's when Mrs. Bindle suggested I handwrite my newspaper. I said that was fine with me because everyone in New York knows I have the best handwriting in the whole 4th grade. And you'd better use a stencil, Mrs. Bindle said, because our copy machine is down again. I'm waiting for the repairman to fix it. A stencil, I said. What's that? It's what you'll need to use the old mimeograph machine. Mimeograph machine? What's that? It's what we used in the old days before we had copy machines. I helped her dig it out of the closet. It looked even older than the typewriter. I found out pretty fast that it's not so easy to write your best on a stencil. I kept goofing. And none of my lines came out straight. They all ran downhill. I threw away the first 2 stencils and made up my mind that the 3rd one would be it, no matter what. Across the whole top of the page, I printed, News Date by Sheila the Great. That looked really neat, except it took up a lot of room. So by the time I got to my crossword puzzle on the bottom of the page, I had to make it very small. I think I spelled counselor wrong, but you can't erase when you've used a stencil, so I had to leave it that way. By the time I finished drawing little pictures of all of our activities along the side margins of my newspaper, it was time to go home, and I was glad. On Friday morning, I was ready to use the mimeograph machine. I thought I'd zip out the 75 copies I needed and still make it back to pottery. Denise would probably let me use the wheel the whole time because I hadn't had a turn all week. But I discovered that you can't just zip out copies on an old mimeograph machine. For one thing, the machine uses a special kind of ink. And after half an hour, my hands were full of it, but the machine didn't have enough because every page came out blank. So I poured in a ton of ink, and then when I cranked it out, the first few copies had big blobs of purple. Were all over the paper, and you couldn't read anything I'd written. That's when Mrs. Bindle said she would get the machine going for me. I told her, what this camp needs is better office equipment. You'll be more experienced next week, Sheila. It probably won't take so long then. I didn't want to think about next week or the week after that, or spending the rest of the summer putting out the camp newspaper. 2 hours later, I was still cranking out copies. They looked better after the first batch, which I had to throw away. This time, you could read practically everything, but the pictures in the margins weren't too clear. Still, if you looked hard, you could see that they were pictures. I couldn't understand why the crossword puzzle came out with such wavy lines, though. But at least I had my 75 copies of Newsdate ready. I didn't much care how they looked anymore. I was just so glad to be done. I took my 75 pages, yelled goodbye to Mrs. Bindle, and ran out of the office. I personally handed a copy of my newspaper to every kid in camp. When Mouse saw it, she said, "What kind of newspaper is this?" And I said, "What do you mean by that?" She said, "I've never heard of a newspaper that's handwritten. It doesn't even look like a newspaper to me." Well, that's just how much you know, I told her. Anybody can type out a newspaper. It takes special talent and a lot more work to handwrite one. What are those funny smudges up and down the sides of the paper? Funny smudges? You must need glasses. Anyone with eyes can see their pictures of our camp activities. No kidding, Mouse said, looking closer. All I see are ink blots. You better have your eyes examined, I told her. Everyone else in camp knows that they are pictures. That's when Russ came up to me and said, "Hey, Sheila, why didn't you get my mother to help you? Then you wouldn't have gotten all your papers all smudged up." Before I had a chance to say anything, 2 big boys walked over to us and handed me the finished crossword puzzle. "Okay, Sheila the Great," one of them said. "What's the big prize?" That's when I realized I didn't have a prize to give. I was sure nobody would be able to figure out my puzzle. "Well," the other boy said. I had to think fast. How would it look if Sheila the Great didn't have a super prize to give? "Congratulations," I said. "You are both very lucky, very, very lucky." "So what do we win?" they asked. "You win the camp newspaper. That's what you win. Next week you get to run it all by yourself, unless, of course, you feel you need a committee. Most people aren't able to run newspapers by themselves." "Some prize!" "I knew you'd think so," I told them, smiling at Mouse and Russ. That night, I made up my mind that the next time I think of such a great project, I will be the boss and my committee of workers will do everything else. And that's the end of chapter 9. Tomorrow, I believe it's just 2 chapters, chapters 10 and 11. Nope, I'm sorry. 10, 11, 12 tomorrow. So we are almost done with Judy Blume's, otherwise known as Sheila the Great. I hope you guys are all enjoying it. If you are, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. That way you know when new videos appear. And if you want to leave comments, Mrs. Lopez answers them. All right. Bye, you guys. See you next time.